Dave Williams, Blacksmith here with today's video, Suspension Myth 4, The Golden Settings. A viewer commented on a recent video thusly: do we have to pay for the final setup or just another bait video? Now, setting aside his poke in the eye for a minute, his comment brings up this suspension myth, this idea of the golden setting, the final setup. What was it that he said? Do we have to pay for the final setup? That golden setup that I just put into my bike and it works forevermore and it works for everybody? Unfortunately, it just doesn't exist. I wish that it did. I wish there were unicorns. I wish there was Santa Claus. But hold on to your hat. It's probably bigger than all the other three myths combined. But we've already started naming myths, so this one's going to be number 4. And it's propagated heavily online in the moto mags and the blogs and the vlogs and everywhere else, because we're a vlog, that there's this magic setup that you get for your bike. It's for your Squat RR, and you put it in there and you now got a race bike. Let's use the Busa video that the guy was whining about as a classic example. That bike had 14,000 miles on it. Let's say you've got a Busa. Yours only has 7,000 miles on it. Same? The guy in that video weighed 235 pounds. How much do you weigh? What tires was he riding? Are you both riding the exact same tires? How about the level of aggressiveness? He was just a commuter kind of guy that did the occasional C group track day, pretty average rider. Or are you somebody that really puts the screws to your bike? You're up in the canyons, shredding it with your buddies. It's variables like these and many others that obliterate the unicorn, shoot it right out of the sky. Because of course unicorns fly, duh. So it doesn't ever really happen. So then you might ask, so what's the point of Dave's website if we don't get there and get the magic settings, man? There's an old Viking saying that comes to mind. It goes something like this: give a man a fish, feed him for a day. Teach a man to fish, feed him for a lifetime. So we're going to start with the latter first. The first shall be last and the last shall be first. We're going to start with teach a man to fish so he can feed himself for a lifetime. That's the whole point of the website. That's the whole point of this YouTube channel. So that you can be empowered to set up your own bike. Because Dave can't always be there to babysit us. I wish I could have him there at every track day. Actually, when I do ride with him at a track day, he's phenomenal. He just sets everything up. The warmers, the everything. Sometimes they even put gas in the bike. It's like having your own crew. It's very cool. But we can't all have that. Sometimes we got to get out, walk on our own. That's the point of the website. So let's look specifically at those items in the Busa video as to why they don't work. Why are those variables shooting our precious unicorn settings out of the sky? So let's take the first one. His bike had 14,000 miles on it. Let's say your Busa has 7,000 again. So because the oil in your Busa is thicker, it's going to flow more slowly through the rebound and compression valving. His is just going to fly right through there because it's thinner. It's got twice as much mileage on it. If you look at that video, and let's just say for the sake of argument that that guy's rebound is 6 clicks out on oil that's 14,000 miles old, and your rebound is 3 clicks out, you know, because you have a frame of reference now, that's just not working. Your bike is in serious hurt. I mean, it's going, the forks are going, and you need to address that issue. That's the point of the website and the videos and all the other content on the website that we're producing, to give you a frame of reference. So now you, as we say in America, you're in the ballpark. You're not way out there across the harbor. You're in the ballpark. You know where you need to be in order for all this to work correctly. Next up, has your fork oil been replaced? That's similar to how old your fork oil is, right? If you've got 7,000 miles and he's got 14. Well, if you've got brand spanking new oil, then you've got the same issue. Your oil is very consistent cold to hot. So when you first get on the bike, all of the suspension is going to work pretty much like it's going to work when you've now gone 100 miles on it. The guy in the video, his fork oil is going to be so dramatically different cold to hot. So the variation creates all sorts of problems. Again, this gives you a reference to understand these things. That's the point of the videos. Next up, are you riding the same tires? Different tires have different carcass constructions and usually tosses them into one of two categories. A soft carcass tire, like the Pirelli.
And sit on that, and it's got a little give to it, and it's giving more over time, and slowly it's dropping further and further down. As you'd expect with a Pirelli, it's a softer carcass and it continues to buckle, and now it's going to collapse.
Or a hard carcass tire, typically Dunlops fall in that category.
And then sitting on the tire with all my weight on it, does it give at all? No, it doesn't. There's no give whatsoever there.
Those require different valving adjustments, particularly with compression, because of how much the tires flex. So you got to take those issues into account. Now, if you had the exact same tires as that guy, bully for you. But if you don't, then content on the website will help you work through that issue so that you can get your valving adjusted better for the tire that you ride. The monster in the room. Weight. That guy weighed 235 pounds. What if you weigh 175? Let's say he's got 14 turns of preload. Dave puts 14 turns of preload into that bike. He didn't, but for the sake of argument, he puts 14 turns of preload into that bike for a guy who weighs 235 pounds, and you weigh 175. You're not going to dent the suspension. It's not even going to move. There's no way. So if you do have 14 turns of preload in your bike too, that should be a warning sign, a little bell that goes off somewhere and says, dude, you need to look at this. Your bike will handle so much better if you can get the forks to move. Lastly, are you a casual rider like that guy, or do you really put the screws to the bike? Like I said, are you up there shredding the canyons with your buddies? Preload, this is a function of preload. That's the first major function. Can it sustain the use that you put the bike to? If you're a casual rider, that's going to be one preload. If you really put the screws to it, that's going to be another. So let's say you really put the screws to it. You're really dropping the hammer on this bike all the time. Then your preload is going to be more out of the starting point, because we always start with weight, as Dave has said.
Unless you can prove to me you can ride at track speed, you get a street setup.
If you really put the screws to the bike, you know, hey, I'm going to have a preload that's going to be stiffer, more towards the casual guy at a heavier weight.
So realize that this measurement, this process tells you where you are starting.
Again, this is how we're trying to provide a frame of reference and to give you the principles to do this. Now, this is the purpose behind all the 2 Clicks videos. Well, all the content, but 2 Clicks specifically when it comes to settings, is to give you first the principles involved. So even in the Busa video, you can take those principles and apply them to any bike. But people often like to see what's being done on the bike they ride. That's why we group these 2 Clicks Out videos usually into bike models for a number of reasons, but that's the main one, so that people get some idea of how to deal with their bike. And once you're comfortable with that, then you can look at a great cross-section of videos on a great cross-section of tires and bikes, see the principles and begin to apply them to you and your ride, and then pretty quickly to help your buddy out. So let's take the infamous pogo. All right, if you've watched this channel and you're a subscriber to the website, it should be intuitively obvious to the most casual observer that a bike that pogos up and down in the front is no good.
It's supposed to go down, up, and stop. So it's pogoing all over the place.
So if you see a buddy who comes to a stop and his bike goes doot, 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 you know that maybe you should get off at the next service station or the next pullout in the road and grab a little wrench out of that toolkit or the screwdriver and make a change. That's what we're trying to do here. But dude, what about all the settings in the magazines and the websites and all that kind of stuff? Come on, aren't there unicorns? Say there is. There's a Santa Claus. Tell me there's a Santa Claus. Actually, the closest thing we could come to is a narwhal. In America, there are a couple of journalists that know what they do, few, regarding suspension. Ari Henning, who used to be at Motorcyclist, and Chris Ulrich at Road Racing World, those two come to mind. They're usually getting press bikes at a press launch, or they've just gotten one from the manufacturer, and so those bikes have a couple hundred miles on them. So they might ride them and then give some suggested settings that work for them. Now, if you've got a brand new model with less than 1,500 miles, and you pretty much weigh what those guys weigh, and you pretty much can ride like those guys ride. Now, if you're riding like Ari Henning and Chris Ulrich, that means you can pretty easily qualify for the Moto America grid, like without hardly trying. Then those settings could work for you. Certainly, they're a place to start, okay? That's about as close to a unicorn as you can get. The same is true if you see Dave tune a brand new bike, and there's one in the recent ZX10 video that has 1,000 miles on it. So if you weigh about as much as that guy, give or take 10 pounds, you could literally start with those settings and take them out and see how they work. But it would be best to back that up with overall knowledge of the principles behind suspension tuning, which again is the point of the website. But let's just say you don't want to learn to fish. Not everybody does. Actually, I know a guy, he was building wells in Africa. One of the tribesmen came up to him and said, "Why are you doing this? Why are you here?" And he gave him that metaphor. Teach a man to fish, feed him for a lifetime. And the guy looked at him and said, "But who will teach us to like fish?" Sans that issue, let's say you like fish, but you don't want to learn to fish. Remote tuning. That's the purpose behind the remote tuning service that Dave offers. Wherever you are on the planet, doesn't matter. Wherever he is on the planet, doesn't matter. We have satellites. So you email or contact him on Facebook, tell him what your situation is. He asks you a series of questions, will probably have you take pictures of your tires and reply. Then he gives you a set of settings to put in your bike. Usually there's a bit of a follow-up there where you take your bike for a spin and give him some feedback about it, and he might give you a few finer adjustments to make. So you just get a fish, and bam, there you go. But eventually, you're going to want another fish. By that I mean, that setting's only going to be good for about 1,500 miles if you continue to ride at the pace that you've always been riding. Let's say you get into the zen. This is awesome.
Morning.
What can we do for you?
You adjusted it way back in May. It hasn't been adjusted since.
How many miles, track days have you put on it since then?
One at Thunderhill.
Okay.
How many miles since? Probably a couple of thousand.
On the road?
Yeah.
It's time. Somewhere around 12 to 1,500 the bike goes out of balance. Are you running the same tires as you did on the original setup?
No.
Okay.
Pressure's right. 34, 32.
Okay. Excellent. Well, take a seat. Let's see where we're at.
But usually what happens is with a new setting, people go, "Holy crap, my bike is so awesome." And they go faster.
So, when was this adjusted?
Probably 15,000 miles ago.
Okay. So it's been a while. You're ready to go.
Okay, cool. So you can come back after the first session?
Every session.
Every session.
For 4 sessions until lunchtime.
Okay,
And
great.
you'll be coming back. $128, $138. Travel, bottom. Good work?
Thanks.
So now we can start stiffening the bike up. You ready for your next run?
All right, thanks, appreciate it.
You're very welcome. So 138, 140. You didn't bottom out this time. So that's, well, actually, no, you did bottom out again. Okay, good work. Off you get.
Thanks.
But if you bottom again, you are better than it. So you need to brake earlier and lighter so you don't low side. Because your ability plus weight is better than the front end can support it.
Sure.
that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
So you're going to have to back it out of braking.
So tell me, how many track days have you done?
This is my third full track day.
Okay.
Keep the clutch in.
First one on this bike though.
Okay.
So
Stay there.
it's fun. Just good to get some insight and some help from Dave.
So immediately they begin to push that setup beyond its workable envelope. Compound that with adding another 1,500 or 2,000 miles, and now that setup just flat isn't any good anymore. Now you need another fish. So you can go back to Dave, get another remote tuning fish, or you can begin to learn to do it yourself. There are a lot of advantages to that. So in the end, those are your options. The last and third option is you just ride what you got and cope with it. The choice is yours. Choose wisely. Unfortunately, the guy who made the comment in the Busa thread has since deleted it. I don't know why. It was a good comment. Even though he, it gave me a little doink. The old Three Stooges doink in the eye there. All comments are good. Remember, back in school, there is no such thing as a bad question, no such thing as a bad comment. Even if you tear me a new asshole, which a lot of people did in the 750 Trash or Treasure video about ripping off my daughter, you bastard. Yeah, I got a lot of those. But hey, dialogue gives us all the chance to be a little wiser. So leave the comments. Lots good can come out of them. Schedule a remote tuning appointment for you and your bike with Dave via text, email, Facebook, etc. Contact Dave on Facebook or by email, dave@davemosstuning.com.